All righty. All right. What's up in happy mental push up Monday, baby? We here. If this is your first time joining, my name is Andrea Fitzgerald. I'm an author, a speaker, also a person really obsessed with personal growth and development. So each week we get in the gym and we do our mental push-ups because the most challenging and rewarding work we will ever do is on ourselves. Now, y'all know normally each week it's me running my mouth, but today I'm very excited because this person has been so instrumental in my journey of personal growth. The lady who I cry with weekly, every other week, whatever. Anyways, but I talk about her all the time on mental push-ups, but this is my therapist, y'all. Toni Louis bringing the heat today. Now, I know Toni, she probably knows all my deepest, darkest secrets, but she's going to bring some of her expertise and genius to us today. So I'm super excited to have you today, Toni.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. Really am.
Yes, yes, yes. So I know you, but
Yeah.
could you, if you would you just introduce yourself to the Mental Push Up Monday community?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So again, I'm Toni Louis. I own a private practice here in Tennessee. And so I'm a licensed holistic psychotherapist and a self-care coach. I treat women here in my therapy practice and around the world with my one-on-one virtual coaching. And primarily we focus on healing relational trauma and incorporating balance and boundaries in your life.
Mm. See, I got questions. I got
Yes.
some questions on the screen,
No
but
question.
so when you say relational trauma, could you just like
Uh-huh.
tell us a little bit about for people who may not know what that means?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it can come from many different angles. I feel like we have a relationship with people and things, right? And experiences that we have throughout our life. But in general, it's our family dynamics, our relationships that we had growing up, maybe things that we saw, how we were treated, experiences, things that happened to us, or things that didn't happen to or for us. I think that's a big thing that we forget about. We focus a lot on, oh, that thing that happened to me, but what about those things that didn't happen, right? That weren't implemented into our lives. And then our social engagements, like school, growing up, making friends, dating, romantic lives, and relationships. All of those relationships have a big impact on our being. And if we're not careful, it can completely take us away from our being almost authentic self, where we become this person that we think we need to be, um, and we get so far away from our identity that we lose connection and ability to actually take care of ourselves and show up the way we were always meant to be.
Mm.
So that can look like, codependency, right? Where we're prioritizing other people before ourselves. It could look like the topic, right? Poor self-care, where we're last on our list because we're making sure that everyone else is taken care of, or we're merging with everyone else's ideas and expectations and putting our own on the back burner. It can look like a lot of different things, hurt and betrayal, struggle with trusting other people, struggle with trusting yourself, lack of confidence, insecurities. Um, yeah, I mean, the list could go on.
I see. Look, this is real deep because something that you said that's very interesting to me. Like when I hear relational trauma, I think like our relationships that we've had. But something you said, it's like it could be people,
Mhm,
things,
mhm.
ideas, things that happened or didn't happen to us. I think that's really that's insightful. And then just even like how the impact of those of how it shows up in our everyday lives. So that is insightful. But we might need a part two on this because this is real deep.
No problem.
Okay, so something you said you're a holistic therapist. Could you tell us like a little bit about that? I know that is a bit different. Could you
Yeah.
just tell us a little about what that is and what is it you do?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, it's a lot like traditional therapy. The main goal with traditional therapy, it's like talk therapy, right? Where we focus primarily on addressing experiences like hurtful or traumatic experiences of the past. We work on healing those things and the emotional impact of those experiences and how to move you forward. So, we do all of that with holistic psychotherapy as well, but I add in a few more components because I just believe that we're more than just our emotions. We're a whole person. And I think that it takes effort in all of these areas, right, for us to be our best self. So we do a lot of emotional focus, right, self talk, but we also talk about like physical self care, right? Mental, spiritual, relational. So all these things make you a whole person, or not just a box of emotions, right? So we address all the things to get you whole and get you balanced in your life and your relationships.
So you said emotional, physical, mental, and I believe you said spiritual. Is that right? So
Yeah.
what is it like? What are those for someone who may not know like what that could look like when you say those different layers of us as human beings? What would you say to that?
Yeah. So spiritual, I think, is like the top thing, like if we do it like on a tier base, and
Mm-hmm.
that could be, it's different for everyone. Sometimes it's specific religion, right? Where their faith, their religion is like the head or the guidance of their life. Sometimes it's just identity based, right? Like spiritually knowing who you are, right? Getting in touch with yourself, knowing your values, your morals, kind of what you stand for, your foundation, what you believe in versus what you don't. Mental, obviously, it's all about like mindset. It's all about those memories and experiences that we have floating around in our brain all the time, those thoughts and beliefs, that we're thinking and carrying with us all day, right? So there's a mental component that we need to talk about and address, in therapy, and how to
Mm-hmm.
think better, right? How to think healthier and take charge of our brain, because we literally can do that.
Mm-hmm.
There's the physical, or not physical, I'm sorry, emotional aspect. And that's the primary piece that we talk about often in therapy, right? How do you feel? So being able to name and identify your emotions, learning what those things look like, what they feel
Mm-hmm.
like, the sensations that go through your body, what they mean, how they're triggered, and also how to manage them, right? So not about taking control of them, not about getting rid of them, but how do we manage our emotions so that we can function in the most healthiest way, right?
Mm-hmm.
The physical component, right? Like exercise, getting our body moving, eating nutritious meals and foods, drinking water, getting adequate sleep. I have clients that come in all the time complaining about sleep. Like I can't sleep at night. Like I'm up all night. And then that lack of sleep impacts all these other areas of our life, right? And so relational, right? Like I said, we have a relationship with everything in life, not just people, but with things. We have a relationship with our job. We have a relationship with our bedroom, right? Like, do I sleep in here? Do I have my laptop on my bed? Do I work in here as well? Like, we have a relationship with everything. So we dissect all of these spaces
Mm-hmm.
to bring ourselves to a sense of awareness, right? To see, like, how am I functioning? How am I showing up in the world? Is this serving me? Right. And if
Mm-hmm.
it's not, then what type of shifts or changes do I need to make in order to be my best self?
Mm.
Hopefully that answered your
Yeah,
question.
that did. That did. I listen. I'm like, shoot, I slick got some therapy insights when you was talking about it. But so something that you said that I thought was like really insightful. And had me thinking. Especially with the work that we've done, is like you said, like spiritual is the most like the most important. Like what is guiding you, like your
Mhm,
identity, um, like almost like self knowledge in a sense,
mhm,
like how tapped in I am to me. So and then like the mental, which is
mhm,
the thinking, and then the emotional, like how do I feel about this, and the physical, which I think I like to consume information. I do. I like to implement. I like to listen. I like to read stuff. But I think that I'm beginning to understand, especially with the work that we're doing now, is like that I focused a lot on the physical. I'm
mhm,
gonna go exercise. I'm gonna go eat the right foods. I'm gonna execute. But if the spiritual, if you are not attuned to
mhm.
who you are, or something bigger
Yeah.
than you, then
Mhm,
I don't know how these other pieces are going to be as effective as they could be. They might work,
mhm,
but I don't
mhm,
know as effective as they could be. But then it's like the
mhm.
other layer. The next piece is like, okay, I'm good now. How do I relate to other people with that?
Yes. You said it perfectly. Like, that's exactly the flow, right? And like you said, these other areas can work. We can find ourselves getting some type of benefit and making some progress when we're like going hard on the physical. We're going hard on like mental. We're reading all these books and getting all this knowledge and like trying to manage our emotions and all the things. You'll get some benefit. But what I've noticed is that a lot of times it's not sustainable, right? We don't maintain it long term. It's more short term because, and like you said, like getting to know yourself and then even more tapping into something, right, that's greater than you. Because I always say, if I had to carry the weight of my life and the things that I experience, even just on a day to day basis, on my own shoulders, like, I would probably not be in this position doing what I'm doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
I need more help than I, would like to consider, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Simply because, like, we cannot carry all of these things. We're not designed to carry all of these things, and
Mm-hmm.
not to kind of veer off, but that's a part of what like prompted me and motivated me to go into this specific like field and category within psychology, just this superwoman syndrome, right? This like
Mm-hmm.
idea of thinking that we have to do all of the things, right? Like especially within our culture, right? Growing up and taking on all the load, like literally carrying all the things on our shoulders, right? All our limbs,
Mm-hmm.
holding all the things and still saying we can take more, you know? So it's like we're not designed to do that, but somehow we get it in our head that we want it, that we're supposed to do that. And that comes from the relational stuff as well, right? How did we grow up? What were we, what did we see, right? Growing up? What were we taught, right? Directly or indirectly, I'm sorry. What did we experience, right? What
Right.
about our lives made us believe that this is how we're supposed to function? So,
Mm.
I digress. I'll get off on a tangent, but
I think that's really
you
good
know,
though. I
on
think that's
a
really
tangent.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
But
That's
it is spiritual is most important at the top. And that again, it doesn't have to mean faith or religion. It
Mhm.
can be whatever feels right for you, but we just have to have some type of connection with our soul, our being, right? Someone or some space to give our cares to, so
Mhm.
to speak, and not continue to position ourselves to hold it all, right, ourselves, because we're not designed to do that.
So I love that you said superwoman syndrome because I was thinking about this other day when I went to my mom's house or whatever. Like, my mom's like she was a single mom, taking care of us, and especially in the black community, I think we see that a lot. You know,
Hmm.
black single moms that doing it all. Like, I just observing her, like she just something needs to get done, like she does it, and I
Hmm.
was there, I was like, well, let me just take the trash out, or let me, and I just think that's something that we see a lot, and it makes sense to me why we would, as black women, sometimes even take on that mindset or expect that from, if we are dating women, like to expect them to do it all as well. So it's almost like, man, it's almost like that's why we must do our work, challenge
Hmm.
those narratives.
Hmm.
Um, oh, so
Exactly. I
I'm
was
sorry,
just
what you
saying
say?
that exactly. I was just agreeing with you. Like, yeah, that's why the work is so necessary. And that type of teaching and encouragement really impacts our identity. And it leads most of us to get really confused. We start to
Mm,
confuse who we are with what we do. Like you said, I'll just get it done, right? I'll do all these things, or like, I got to do what I got to do, right? We start to connect our identity with the doing versus the being, right? And we're human beings, right? We're people.
mm. Okay, I got follow-up questions to that. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that is so common. I think that I think at times I can live in that world. Like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing it, and just how do you differentiate? How do you know that you are in your being and when you are in your doing? Because something that you also alluded to was like a soul, like you talked a little bit about that too. Like, how do you know when you're doing versus being?
Yeah. When you mention the soul, I think the thing about, like, I feel like our soul, our spiritual side, it's the part of us that's the most quiet, right? Like, she doesn't make the most noise, you know? She's not the loudest one in the room, and
Mhm,
so I say that to say that we have to slow down enough to notice which part of us are we operating from. When we are busy, 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 right, and taking on all the things and just like trying to clear our to-do list, trying to meet everyone's expectations, we're just moving and doing constantly, then we miss her voice. Like we're unable to hear from her, right? And see if we're doing what we need to do, if we're in alignment, true alignment with ourselves that day, or if we are completely out of alignment. So I guess my point is being able to slow down enough, right, to check
mhm,
in with ourselves and, you know, see if we're missing something, right? Like see if we can hear her voice to say like, no, hey, today you're actually tired. You really don't need to do that thing.
mhm,
Actually, I really was planning on like, taking today off, but now this person asked me to do this thing. So no, I need to honor, what's important to me and what I said I needed to do for myself. Like we literally missed those clues and those reminders because we're just so externally focused, right? So focused on what people are saying to us, what people are expecting, the
mhm,
things on our list that need to be done, the things that we see in our house that need our attention. Like we're so distracted externally that we never take the time to really just check into what's really going on the inside. And I believe when we do,
mhm,
that is when we can truly identify like which part of us are we operating from, right? Is this the
mhm,
being side of me where I really feel good about what I'm about to do? Or is
mhm.
this the doing side of me where I'm doing to meet an expectation or to please someone or something outside of myself?
Mm. That's it's so interesting that I hear multiple people say like the same thing. It's like slowing down and
Mhm.
choosing,
Yeah.
But if you're not slowing down and you're like doing all the things, it's almost like you don't give yourself time to be in the silence to really hear how you feel. It makes me
Mhm.
think about, how I think we were talking about a while back about like that morning routine, like taking that time to meditate so that you can really tap in to yourself and you can feel
Mhm.
in your body when something out versus like, you know what? I'm clapping back. I don't care. I just feel it in my body. I ain't slowing down nothing. I'm about to, you know.
Yep. We gotta
Mhm,
take that pause. I always tell people that there is power in the pause, right? Like slow down, take a pause before you respond to anything. So often, like someone will ask us something, or we'll see an email or a text message or anything. We're like, like we just instantly go and respond like, oh yeah, like I can do that, or yeah,
mhm,
like we just respond off of this emotion, this
right,
charge that we feel. And the thing is, even if we are gonna say yes, right? Even if we are gonna
right,
go
right.
that route, I always encourage give a slow yes, right? Instead of a fast yes. That way you know which part of you this is coming from. Slow down, take
Mhm,
a beat, right? Breathe and check in with yourself on what you really want in this space. And then proceed. Like you said, make the choice, right?
mhm,
Based on what's real, what's authentic to you, and not just what you think is going to be satisfying or even impressive to somebody else.
mm. So I think in our culture that we are like kind of taught that, to kind of
Mhm.
consider other people. Oh, be a good girl, be a good boy. Oh, you want to, you want to make aunt so and so happy. You want to make your parents happy. How do we transition to being more self focused? Because I think that what I'm beginning to understand, the more that I engage in therapy and the more that I explore myself, it's like it's really about the relationship you having with you. It
Yeah.
really is. It's a lot to do with other people, but it really don't. At the end of the day,
Mhm.
what do you suggest people do to shift that from being so outside, externally focused?
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it can be very challenging, right? Like when we're so conditioned to be that way, there's a lot of emotions that come with that, like guilt and like shame and like
Mm,
all the things, identity. We think that we're being mean or unkind if we think about ourselves. So I just want to name that first. Like, whatever I say next doesn't mean that it's easy, right? It's a lot easier said than done, and we can accept the challenge, right? Like we can do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the first thing I think about is just keeping it very simple because of that challenge piece to this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just simply paying attention to your likes and dislikes. You don't have to name them to anyone else. Like you don't have to, if you're not there yet, right, to assert yourself and speak on what you want versus what you don't want to people, at
Mm-hmm.
least start getting familiar with what that's like for you to name it for yourself, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
that could simply be like, honestly, I really don't like eating at that restaurant that my family likes to go to every Friday
Mm-hmm.
or whatever. Like, I really don't like that restaurant. Again, you may not be ready to tell them that, but at least practice being honest with yourself, right? Or I really would prefer this or that. I really like this versus I really don't like that. Because
Mm-hmm.
what happens is we get so like used to just like going along to get along to where again we drift further and further away from our own identity and we start forgetting what our truth is. We forget like, I don't really know what I like, right? I don't really
Mm-hmm.
know how I feel about that thing
Mm-hmm.
because we've lived in the space of other people's feelings for so long. So
Mm-hmm.
just simply be getting honest with yourself and noticing what that feels like for you to even just admit it to yourself, your likes, your dislikes. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, starting there, just simple likes and dislikes.
Yeah. It's almost like I hear you saying like before it may seem like a really big task to be like I've got to communicate this to somebody else, but you can the small thing that you can do is just starting by just noticing. And I think that's so important because I think that is what has helped me grow the most in our work together is like it's not because I like to do all the things, Tony. I like to go all in. I'm over the top. Listen, I know this, but you're like, oh, no, no, no.
Slow down, slow
Slow down. This the part we gonna focus on this week, okay? Like we not doing all the things. So I think
Yeah,
that's so important for people to know. Like this is especially like habits you've had your whole life. Like this ain't changing tomorrow.
no, no, we wanted to so bad. Like it should have
Mm-hmm.
happened yesterday, actually, right? But we have to slow down and break this thing up. Like I kind of live by this triple A formula of awareness, acceptance, and then action, right? So awareness is all the space that we were just talking about, right? Just what do I like? What do I not like? Like, how do I feel about this? Like, what's my opinion on
Mm-hmm.
this thing? Or whatever, just becoming fully aware of all of our parts.
Mm-hmm.
And then the acceptance piece is doing it without judgment, right? Radically accepting all the things that come up, right? Not shaming ourselves because we find out that we have a different opinion than someone else, or oh, I should be thinking this way, or I should feel this way. Like, says who? Who says that you should think and feel whatever way besides whatever way that's naturally coming up for you? So,
Right.
practicing accepting yourself, your own self, without judgment, without criticism, without shaming words and expressions, right? And only when we reach that point where we can give our own self love and compassion in our uniqueness is when we can move to action. And that's what like you were talking about. Like I'm ready to like get it done. I'm ready to do it. And most folks, like most clients that I come across are the same way. They're like, just tell me what to do. Give me the steps. Tell me what to do. And I'm like,
Right.
really? Well, we got to slow down. We got to do these other two first because if we don't bring knowledge to those other spaces and quiet the inner critic and position you to hear more of your compassionate voice and in your accepting voice,
Mm-hmm.
when you start to do these things and people aren't as receptive, right? Or people
Mm-hmm.
have their opinion or whatever, it's going to be so easy to go right back to your old way if
Thanks.
you're not equipped with the tools to keep encouraging yourself to move forward.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. That's freaking good, man. That's so good. Yeah. Because especially it's almost like being aware of it. That I think that one in the middle, that acceptance piece, I think is probably I don't know about it from other people, but the most challenging. Um,
Mhm.
because it's, you said, accepting what it is without judgment, which shame.
Mhm.
Especially I think in the black community, I feel like that's like something that's used quite a bit. It's shame. They use shame at the church. They use shame at it to get you to do, to be like, oh, you car broke down. You need to tithe this money. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just, it's used so often to get you to behave a
Mhm.
certain way. Like what are your thoughts on that? As far as like
Mhm.
shame, and why that is such a big thing I think that we carry, because I think, like, I think about myself, a lot of things that I'm unwilling to accept or have been unwilling to accept is because, like, oh, I don't want to believe this about myself. Like, girl, you
Yeah,
play sometimes. I don't want to believe that. You know.
yeah,
Mm,
yeah. No, I agree with you 100%, like, especially in our community, in the Black community, because, we had to get really creative, right, with tactics for survival, even like fear, right? Fear being a hope for motivation to act right, so to speak, and not only, I mean, if we get technical, like not only as it relates to like slavery and like slave masters, it's more of even within our own community, right? Like if I was a mother during those times and I'm trying to protect my child or not be like separated from my child, then
mhm,
I'm going to probably result to fear when it comes to my
mm,
child. Like, oh, this could happen, right? Like, oh, close your mouth. Don't say anything when this person enters the room. I mean, don't look
mm,
at them. Don't do these things, right? Make them afraid to do it out of the desire and hope that nothing happens to my child, right? The desire and hope that we can stay together and not be torn apart because my son or my daughter has like stepped out of line, so to speak, right? So
mhm,
there's so much fear that we used back in the day to, like you said, get people to behave a certain way, not from a negative space, but from a fearful space, a space of wanting to keep you
mhm.
ultimately alive, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it just shifts in form, right? And as years go on, generations go on, it transfers from fear to shame, right? Where now we're not just instilling fear in you to act right, right, to be a certain way. Now I'm knocking at your identity like, oh, well, you're not being nice if you do
Mm,
this, or, I don't think people are gonna like that if like then
mhm,
we start this comparing, right? And trying to normalize um, being like everybody else, if that makes sense, following the crowd or the trend or whatever, right? So, anywho, I agree. I think it comes from long history. It just
mhm.
passed down and it evolves. It takes different shapes and forms over time. Um, I think I've probably gotten off the ending question that you asked.
No, I think that's really good. You know, what I hear you say when you say that is almost like it makes sense. Like it was a protection, it was a strategy that we utilize to help us survive,
Yeah,
and it's almost like, oh, be quiet. But it's almost like
it's probably being you I'm talking to.
yeah, but it's almost like it. Okay, so our ancestors, they use strategies to protect themselves. They
Mhm.
bring it to us, trying to protect us.
Yeah.
We adapt those strategies to protect ourselves. We experience trauma. We trying to protect ourselves. We use these strategies, and if we don't ever challenge or explore why am I doing the thing that I'm doing,
Mhm.
then these strategies can continue for,
Yeah.
and then my kids will experience the same thing because I didn't, explore my own, my own stuff, and they may pick up some of the strategies that I use or develop their own. um
Right.
and I think it leads into the next piece of like this. It to me is like why it's so important to have something
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
unpack
Mhm.
these some of these ideals that may not be for our benefit.
Yeah, definitely, right? Like we have to become aware of our blind spots, right? And it's hard to become aware of your blind spots when in our body we can only look one way.
Okay.
Like I don't have eyes in the back of my head. I can't like 360 and like see all the things, right?
Mhm,
But like if we think about that, like
mhm,
imagery happening
mhm,
on the inside, right? We can't see
mhm.
all the things, right? So we need someone else looking in from a different angle with a different perspective, with new material and resources, right?
Yes.
To help make sense of things, which is why therapy or coaching, like some type of professional experience like that is very
Mhm.
important. we just don't see all the things. And, I'll say this too, because I think it's very important for people to know this, that like we're talking about shame and like, identity and all the things, we are made to believe that these parts of us are bad too. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Which further deepens the shame, right? Like if, my parent did this thing and now I see myself doing the same thing, and like shame on me for showing
Yep.
up this way. But
Absolutely.
what about exploring where it came from? Kind of like you said, like, why are you operating this way in the first place? Why do you feel like you need to protect yourself in this way? Why do you feel like you need to withdraw in this space, right? Like, what's it all about? And let's give that part of you some love, right? Let's let this part of you know that, hey, we actually appreciate you developing and showing up at the time of my life when you did, because you probably saved my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But right now, I'm giving you permission to like go have a seat, right? I don't
Right.
need you right now. I'm not kicking you out of the room. I'm not telling you go away and never come back, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying, hey, you served your role right when I needed you. Right now I don't.
Mm-hmm.
And I need you to come back again. I'll call your name and bring you back up to stage. Right.
Right. Right.
So I think that's another reason why people are afraid to like go to therapy and things like that, because of what will come up. But these are all parts of us and all of them are needed and necessary.
Yeah. Man, that's like really really deep, because it's almost like I hear like a lot of things in that. I mean, number one, like you can't see the picture when you're in the frame,
Mhm.
like
Right.
you just can't, I'd love to think that, gosh, I'm so perfect and I never get it wrong, but I don't quite hear that all the time. I don't quite hear that. I think it's so important to have someone to call you in to
Mhm.
who you genuinely are,
Mhm.
um because
Mhm.
you don't know, like you literally,
Mhm.
you just, like I done came in a session, I'm like, you know what, it's they fault. I know it's they fault, and it's like, oh no, boo, that's you. No, beloved, that's you right there. So I think it's so important. It's so important for that. But then something else you said is like loving on even the parts that maybe
Like the
sometimes,
difficult part.
yes, the
Yeah.
difficult parts,
Mhm.
and really exploring the why and the root cause. I think that is what's been so impactful about the work that we've done together, is that, like I said, I want to get into the action, but the
Yeah.
really why are you doing this
Mhm.
thing? Yeah, because
Mhm.
like we're doing the same thing. We've talked about this about 3 times now. Like, what is our next steps? Like, what do we need to figure out what's going on so that
Yeah.
we're not having this same conversation? So I
Yeah.
think that is so important, and especially as you talked about that shame that people may feel about, like, okay, if I go to therapy, what does that mean?
Mhm.
And it makes me think about when I hear you say like some of the people's resistance to therapy, like, what, stay in this house, don't go outside of this house, like some of those type of things.
Yeah.
Like, you're
Yeah.
not supposed to tell anybody, and
Yeah.
um
Yeah.
like
That
it's
we
just
don't even realize how we're setting our kids up for that, right? Like, no, like, don't tell people this and don't, and we're already instilling shame. Like, there's something to be ashamed about, right? Like,
right.
we are who we are. We're all imperfect beings. And so that's why I think number two, acceptance is the most important piece of those three steps. We think, then, like you said, because we're like, just tell me what to do.
Right.
But acceptance is so important because there is such a peace that comes over you
Hmm.
when you can accept who you are inside, outside, flaws and all, and
Yes.
trying to like wish the difficult parts away, or,
Yes.
fantasize about being someone different or like someone else, right? That
Right.
is
Right.
just not who you are. There's such a peace in that. And you'll find that the actions become very easy once you are accepting to your whole self.
I think that is so true. That's just that's so true, because I think about one of the sessions we had like maybe like a month ago, and it's almost like the world is slowing down. Now I know I
Mhm.
still got more work to do, beloved, listen, because I know it doesn't end, but I can definitely see the like it's like the game starting to slow down. Like when you hooping and you in the flow, it's like, okay, I see this, I see that, but
Yeah.
it's like even being able to accept like criticism, be
Mhm.
like, okay, I can see how I do that, or oh, this is me, this is not me. Like so I can definitely see the game starting to slow down because of the awareness and the acceptance of, yeah, I can be that way sometimes. You know.
Yeah, definitely, right? And it's
Mhm.
such a simple statement, but it's so powerful. Like, you know what? Yeah, I do that, right? Or I can see where I did that, or I do that sometimes, right?
Mhm.
Versus trying to be defensive and make it go away. Like, there is such a
Yes.
peace in just accepting that. Like, you know what? I made that mistake. I did do that. You're right. That did happen. And
Yes.
we can gracefully move towards action. So now what can we do about it? I'm
Right.
owning that, right? Now, what do I do different? What can we do about this?
Yes, absolutely. It's a huge difference. It really is.
It
But
really is.
I didn't realize this framework though. I might have to. I guess I've been in the framework. I didn't know it, but yes, and where acceptance.
I do that sometimes. I speak it and like we're
Mhm,
doing it, but I don't name it all the time. So that there we go, right? There is a flaw or limitation of mine because I get so caught up and you know this, I'm very passionate about what I do. I get so caught up in like the education and the connections and like your awareness and improvement that I probably didn't slow down and say, oh, by the way, this is the model that we're doing.
yes,
So
yes,
yeah, yeah,
yeah. I can definitely see it though. Like
yeah.
I can see how like I first worked together was really like the awareness piece,
Mhm.
and how we're moving into the acceptance and pieces of action and stuff like that. I can see that over time because and it's a process, it,
Mhm.
it, it is a process, and I think that's something else people to consider about this good therapy, y'all. Listen, is this ain't gonna ever end, okay? You gonna be here for a while. Um so a question,
Mhm.
so we know self-care is a big deal, especially in this time of season.
Mhm.
Like considering all the things that you've done in your work thus far and all the clients you see, what do you think are the most three essential pieces of information that people need to know, like to be their healthiest mentally? What would you say?
Mhm. Um, Let me think about that. To be your healthiest mentally. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when you say mentally is to think about what you're thinking about. That's something I say often. And all that means is, again, you have to slow down enough to make this happen, right? Where as soon as you feel something, right, that's the first thing that we are like attracted to that we notice that's going on with our body. We notice if we're angry, we notice if we're nervous, like we notice the feeling first. So as
Mhm,
soon as you feel something, instead of instantly reacting to that feeling, take a moment and think about what you're thinking about. What's going on in your head that might be triggering the emotion that you're feeling,
mhm,
right? Most of the time, whatever we're thinking and or I'll even say believing in that moment is to be true is what is triggering the intense emotion right now. So, if I'm like, I want to take care of my mental health, like at work, right? And let's say, you're a coworker of mine and you say something to me and I instantly feel like angry or defensive, then
mhm,
what that looks like is noticing that anger, slowing down and thinking about what am I thinking in my head. And I might notice that I'm thinking like, oh, she's always so mean to me, or she doesn't like me anyway, or
mhm,
she wants to get me fired and take my job, or maybe I'm thinking and believing all these negative things that are in turn driving and intensifying this negative emotion that I'm feeling. So if I want to have better mental health, I have to become more aware of what I'm thinking on a daily, consistent basis. I mean, we as humans think over 60,000 thoughts per day. There's no way we can keep up with all of those thoughts, which is
mhm,
why I say whenever you're triggered emotionally, take a pause. And then that's when you really need to think about what's floating around in your brain and what are you choosing to believe about the space that you're in.
mhm,
Um, so yeah, thinking about what you're thinking about, assessing if that's helpful. Are these thoughts helpful? Are they making me feel good? Are they not? And then you can make the choice to redirect your thoughts. I don't
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of people realize how much power and control we do have over our thoughts. Now, we don't have any control over the first thought. I always say that that initial thought is
Okay.
an initial brain
Mm-hmm.
reaction based off of
Mm-hmm.
our experiences, right, and
Mm-hmm.
our knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But we have the power to, or we have the choice, let me say, of what we think about after, what we give energy to after. So I
Mm-hmm.
might have that initial thought like, oh, see, she just doesn't like me, right? That
Right.
might
Right.
initially come, but I can choose to say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that. I don't
Mm-hmm.
even know if that's true or not. I'm just taking it personal. If I if I want to know something, I need to ask her what she means by that. Like I can't change my thoughts. And
Mm-hmm.
that alone it's a challenging task too, but it's not impossible. It's very much so doable, and that changes everything because our brain is literally the head of everything our feelings, our attitude, our actions, and ultimately the results that we get every day is all led by what we choose to think and ultimately believe about ourselves, other people, and
Mm-hmm.
whatever situation that you're in.
Mm. When I hear you say that, like being thoughtful of what it's almost thinking about our thinking, like being super meta about it. But
Mhm.
something that I think we discussed before was like, yeah, thoughts are really neither good or bad. It's like the meaning that we assign to them, which is
Yeah.
which is so common. Be like, oh, you did this, you just don't care about me. Oh,
Yeah.
you did this, you just don't like me. Like it's the meaning behind the thought that almost encourages the reactions that we have. Like, how do we manage that? And then I'm imagining you're thinking this, and then, oh, here come the feelings.
Yeah.
So then it's like, oh, baby, it's on and popping like a pot of neck bones up in here. So how do you suggest what would you say to someone is like, you know what, listen, I'm creating whole telenovelas up here with the meanings that I'm making about what I think people are doing or what they're saying.
Mhm.
Like, how do you suggest people manage that? Because I think that is very common. I think it's
Mhm.
common, just human beings. Like we
Yeah.
fill in the blanks.
Yes, we do. Like, and you're so correct. And just a little context to that, the reason why we do that is because our brain loves a story. And it's designed that way. I mean, literally, it loves the story. It needs to know what's going to happen, what's beginning, middle, and the end results of this book, right?
Okay. Okay.
And it does that. It's designed that way, literally to keep us safe. Like it needs to really quickly calculate any situation to determine if this is dangerous, what we need to do,
Mhm.
how can we keep our person alive, right?
Mhm.
But it doesn't always work for us in these types of spaces, right? But what I would suggest, for one, yes, noticing what you're thinking about, right? And then I always say, look for the evidence. So if
Mhm.
I'm saying, like, oh, yeah, like, this person, this happened, and I'm making this mean that this person is out to get me and they just want to steal my job, right? I'll just continue going with that example.
Mhm.
Um, then I look for the evidence to support that. Like, I'm thinking this, I'm believing this, but is there any real evidence to support what I'm saying? Or am I just going off of my own paranoia, right? My own feeling, my own past experiences that's making me
Mm.
think that this person is doing this. A lot of times when we do that, we realize that, there's no real evidence to support that. She's really never even mentioned wanting this position. She really, I think, if I'm honest, I think she's really trying to help me. I just don't
Mhm.
really like her trying to help me, or
Right.
whatever the case may be. Like when we slow down again, there's that phrase again, we slow down enough to consider the evidence in that space. And most of the time, I won't say 100% of the time, sometimes what we're experiencing is very real, right?
Mhm.
That takes us a different direction. But a lot of times, what we think is happening isn't really happening because of it feels that way because of what we've made it mean. We made this mean that.
Mhm.
Right? And then when we gather the evidence or look for the evidence, there's really no evidence there to support that a crime, so to speak, has really been committed.
Mm. That's real
Right?
deep. That's real deep. Because something you said is that looking for evidence to support it, but it's
Mhm.
like if we're pulling on past experiences And again, this way y'all need to get one of these, y'all. Cause because like questioning, is this really true? Like
Mhm.
is there does it really mean that they really want my job? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
could it be more? But I think when I think about like having a therapist, it kind of equips you with tools to better navigate those situations and question some of
Right.
those ideas. Because if you don't, then those past experiences will continue to drive you, and you'll get more of what you possibly don't want.
Yes, that part, right? You'll
Mm-hmm.
get more of what you possibly don't want. So we end up creating what we don't want to experience all over again, all from our own stuff. And we
Mm-hmm.
blame the other person, we blame the people, the situation, but really it's us. Like we are, it's our own self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Where we are recreating the very thing that
Right.
we feel the most, all because of our unhealed wounds, our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I could definitely see that, man. Man, oof, this thing, it's so deep.
Mhm,
This thing,
mhm.
it run real deep, cause it
Yeah,
just and it's almost like when I heard you say that, I thought you find what you're looking for. Like
yeah,
you will continue to, because you're thinking. You're
yeah,
thinking. You say this is what
the
it is, this is
time.
what it is. Nobody loves me, they don't care. Then guess what? Nobody loves me, they don't care. And I'm gonna find evidence all day to suggest that. But being willing to challenge and question uh
Mhm.
is so important. Okay.
Yeah.
So I know that we're wrapping up a time, and I want to be mindful because I know it's the holidays, and y'all, she don't work on Friday. So listen, y'all, listen. So she's just very kind today. Okay, so as we so I had some questions from the audience, and so
Okay.
one of the questions they asked were, what are some of the things that you would recommend for someone to give self care on an ongoing basis? Like, what are they doing? Because, well, never mind. Go ahead. You go ahead, answer that question. Then I got another. Okay.
Okay, okay. So, like we talked about at the start, I think it's just very important to always remember that self care is holistic, right? It's holistic in form. It's not just about like physical self care. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, I have this slogan that I always say with my company, just self care is a lifestyle, right? It's not a vacation, it's a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when I say it's not just physical, naming the things like going to get my nails done, going to get my hair done, or going on a vacation. Don't get me wrong, all of those things are great and very necessary, right? But it falls only under one category of self care,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I encourage you to always think about all the parts of you that make you a whole human being. You're not just this physical aspect that needs sun or pretty nails or nice hair,
Okay.
right? We need other things like internally. So, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like we talked about, relationally, what is necessary in those spaces for you to be your best self, right?
Mm-hmm.
Quick examples, maybe mentally, like I know for myself, I have to start my morning, like we talked about, a certain way. Like I do readings or listen to certain devotionals or things to kind of prepare me to set the tone for my mind and the way
Yeah.
I wanna feel for each day. I'm
Mm-hmm.
an introvert, so emotionally, like, as I'm talking and, like, meeting with people each day, like, my battery is, like, going down. Things are getting
Mm-hmm.
cleared from me. So emotionally, I know I need pauses. I know I need alone time incorporated in every single, day, throughout my week. And so that's necessary for me to take care of myself emotionally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, like relationally, like connection is so important to me, right? Especially these days with everything being virtual and,
Mm-hmm.
since COVID and all the things, like, so I have to be creative in making sure I'm connecting with people and also still setting boundaries because in my connecting with people, I'm still draining my emotional battery. So I have to know when enough is enough so that then I can go and like dock on my charging station and boost my emotional system back up. So I'm just naming a few examples, but that's me. And so you think about you, what are the things you need in all of these areas, not just physical, to
Mm-hmm.
be well and to be your best?
Mm-hmm. That is really insightful. That's a different definition of self-care than I've heard. Um, because the physically, I think that is again what we most focus on. It's like, oh, let me get my
Mhm,
nails done, girl. I'm about to go to this gym. I'm about to, but it's like the mental, emotional, and relational,
mhm.
spiritually, like the whole person. And especially I think about like that relational piece. Um,
Yeah.
because I can tend to get very consumed with my ideas, like a mad scientist over here. I want to get on there and create, 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 and I can isolate. Like I feel like, as I told you before, like it's been friendships that I know that I've lost because I've been so focused on
Mhm.
me and going after my goals and stuff like that. But I'm realizing more and more, you need people. That's a
Yeah.
part of this. You can't do this alone. You need community, you need connection, and stuff like that. And I wanted to just follow up with the question, especially on the relational piece. How do boundaries situate themselves as a form of self-care?
That's a really good question. Because I'll say quickly that we are all very different,
Mm,
right? And we all, again, need different things. And so if we are consistently positioning ourselves to meet the needs of everyone else in our relationships and like, follow their expectations, make everyone else comfortable, all the things, then in turn we are saying yes to everyone else and that means a no for us. So
mm,
we have to be able to set boundaries to take care of ourselves. The main thing that I want folks to know and remember about boundaries is that boundaries are not walls. I think that's a confusion that I hear all the time. Folks are like, well, I don't want to shut that person out, or I don't want to be mean. And that's not
mhm,
what boundaries are in relationships. Boundaries are literally like this little fence that we put up to keep your person inside safe.
mm,
You can think of it like a fence on your house, right? Like it doesn't mean that if you have a fence in the front of your yard
mhm,
that it's a brick wall where nobody can see you and ever like
mhm,
come in, right? It's a fence, which means that people can still look over the fence. They see your house. They know that you're there. There's actually a latch where if you unlock it, people can actually come in, right?
mhm.
You can actually open the door on your fence sometimes and just
Right,
say,
right.
"Hey, you don't even have to knock." Like today is a day where y'all can just come on in, right? But I
Mhm,
can close this fence as an indicator that, like, hey, like today's not a good day, or, I need to go and take care of myself in this way, or whatever, right? It's
mhm,
literally just designed to keep you, which is the person inside the fence, safe and allow you space and time and room to do whatever it is that you need to do to take care of yourself. Where
mm,
I am, and this is where you are, right?
mm.
So
Okay.
we're not walls, right? Walls are literally if we put plaster this brick wall right on the outside
Mhm.
of my house, and you can't even see me, right? You don't even
Right.
know what's back there, right? Now
Uh-huh.
that's shutting people out. So
Mhm,
boundaries, we're not doing that. We're just drawing the line to say what we're okay with, what we're not, what we need versus what we don't need.
mm. Well, okay. One more question, Tony, and I promise to listen. Okay. All right. Okay. So boundaries.
Uh-huh.
Continue that conversation because something I continue to hear as I read and study is like they're really not about other people. They're about
No.
you.
Yes, yes,
They're
yes.
about you. And because I think sometimes I was listening to this podcast one time, they were like, if your boundary is incumbent on someone else being different, you might as well just go ahead and cancel Christmas on that. That ain't happening. Like it's like it ain't happening. So
So,
it's about you. Like, what would you recommend to people to like kind of get that understanding, or what an example of what that could look like? Like, this is my
mhm.
boundary, and this is what I'm going to do when that happens.
Mhm. Yeah. No, I think that's good the way that you put it too. Like we cannot set our boundaries based on the hope or expectation for changing someone else, right? Because the truth of the matter is that we simply cannot do that. It doesn't matter what you do, which way you flip it, how you say it. You cannot change anybody else. And I guarantee you, if change occurred, right, when you did something, it wasn't because of you solely. It's because that person made a decision to
Mm-hmm.
actually do something different. Now, I will say we can influence people, right? Like with our voice, with our knowledge, with our curiosity. Like we can influence people to consider things like, oh, I didn't know you felt that way, or I didn't know that when I did that, that made you do this, right? Like we can influence the decision, but at the end of the day, the decision is theirs and theirs alone. So you have no control. So
Mm,
knowing that, my hope is that when you set boundaries, you don't have other people in mind as far as them changing as
mm,
much as it is about you changing how you're deciding to show up in that space so that
mm,
you can take care of yourself,
mm.
right?
Okay. Okay.
So
So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
more about you. Oh.
definitely. And again, what you need. I'll
Mm,
give an example. I remember oh gosh, maybe the beginning of my marriage. I've been married for like 12 years now, but like early on, I had this really good friend and we are not friends anymore today, but like it was a very hard like friendship breakup for me.
mm,
And I would talk to my husband about it all the time, like grieving and, just kind of
mhm,
like processing through. And his personality type is that really wants to be helpful and like give all the advice and say all the things. And that's cool and all, but I didn't want that at that time, right?
okay.
And I just wanted to be able to cry and talk about this thing, right? Long story short, we would always end up arguing, right? In the midst of me trying to like grieve this friendship. I'm like, what is happening? So I could not stop him from saying what he felt like he needed to say or trying
Mhm,
to support me in the only way he knew how. Like he was doing his very best, right, to try to support
mhm,
me. But I had no control over what came out of his mouth. So I had to decide that he's not going to be my person that I talk to or process this friendship breakup with.
okay.
Literally, like I had to set that boundary. It wasn't about him. It was
Mhm,
about me because it was no longer a safe space for me to talk to him about this
mhm,
friendship breakup. Now,
mm,
did that mean that I didn't talk to him about anything else? No. I just decided this person, this breakup, I can't talk to him about because I cannot control how he responds, right? That's not
right.
in my control. And what
Mhm,
I notice is that how he responds is somehow triggering me into an argument with him every time.
mhm.
So I focused on what I needed to do different, which
Right.
was to find a different person to process this with
Right.
versus trying to make him, oh, well, all you need to do is this. You should just say this, or
Right.
you trigger me when you do these things. Like, I'm not the boss of what comes out of his mouth, right?
Mm,
But I am the boss of how I choose to process my
mhm.
grief.
Right.
Sense?
Yeah, that makes I think that's so good. And especially when I hear you say that like in a relational space is because I think just as humans are like, you need to do this and you need to, and it's like it takes a lot of courage to be like, yeah, actually, I don't think that you're the person that I need to talk about this topic about. So I'm gonna talk to someone else about it. I think that takes a
Yeah.
lot of courage. And it reminds me of like Esther Perel. She often says that she said what makes a relationship sustainable is having a community. She said now like we want to put everything on this one person and like they literally cannot, it's like impossible. Like they can't meet us there. But
No.
that takes a lot of courage to be like, actually, boo, I love you, but I'm just gonna talk to someone else about this. You know?
Right. That's exactly how that conversation went. You know what? Let me tell you something. Right. This is what I'm gonna do. And I
Right.
love the comment about Esther Perel that yes, we need a community. That one person can never be your everything. And when we try to make them that, then that's where we invite in all the conflict and indirectly a lot of shame. There we go with that word again, right? Like we don't
Mhm.
realize what we're doing because that person feels a lot of shame for not being able to be the person that we're trying to make them be. They feel bad, right? Because
Right,
they love
right.
you, right? They want to help you. But
Mhm.
every time you point out that they're not or they're doing something
Mhm.
wrong, they
Right,
feel a great deal of shame and like
right.
helplessness, right?
Mhm.
So let's do them a favor and yourself and make a better decision for your own self and what you can control versus trying to control them.
Yes, I love that. Okay, we're gonna have to have a part two. We gotta talk
But
about
yeah,
relationships. Yeah, I need you to come back because I think that's
yeah,
especially in the black community. Like I feel like we need that. We need to have these conversations
mhm,
about like those type of things specifically. So yeah,
yeah.
we got to have you back. We got to have you back.
I
But
will be happy to come back. Happy
Yes, yes,
to.
yes. We got to have you back. Listen, I'm gonna have to put it out. Be like, we got relational questions. Hit me. Okay,
Mhm.
so as we close out, as we wrap up this conversation, what is one thing that you like? One key takeaway for our listeners today from our conversation today. What would one key takeaway that you have for them?
Let's see. Maybe just like how you pointed out that formula. You're like, wait, have I heard that? Right? I think that formula is kind of sums up everything we've been talking about today. Remembering as it relates to self care, we need awareness, self awareness, right? We need acceptance, radically accepting who we are inside and out, and everything that comes up as we're being made aware, right, of ourselves.
Mhm.
And then we take action. Then we decide the next best steps, right? It's not necessarily about what's the right thing versus wrong thing. All we can do is make the next best decision that promotes the next best step. And
Mhm.
then when we're in that step, we see if it's working for us or not. We can always change our mind. We can always do something different. So awareness, acceptance, then action.
Yes, yes. Listen, y'all. Listen. You don't know the action queen over here. But I love that what you just said there about like the next best choice, and it's okay if it changes, and it makes me think like just there really is no right or wrong way to this thing. It's literally being curious. I think we talked about in our last session, like being curious, exploring, like this work that didn't, but there is no right or wrong here, and it's just it's continuing to evolve. And when I hear you say that, I think that is again why it's so important to have someone to like talk through these things, because I'm sure I would have got there.
Yeah,
But I don't know if I would have got there by myself. I think I would have had
yeah,
some of my toxic ways of thinking still. I'm pretty sure of it. I'm pretty certain. I don't know if I would have arrived at some of these destinations as quickly. So
yeah.
so I just really thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come share your expertise and just your insights. And y'all get to see why I be up in that thing crying, y'all. Listen. But thank you so much. And so for people who want to connect with you, Toni, where can they find you? What you
Yeah.
got going for?
So, main arena is my website, selfcareexperience.com. If you go there, you can, check out my services. You can also, there's a link to book a free phone consultation if you want to chat about beginning services with me of some sort. And so, yeah, website, selfcareexperience.com. I'm also trying to do a little something in social media.
She is, y'all, dropping the gem. She said, "Oh no, that's you, boo." That's I saw that one. I said, "Oh, dang, man, you didn't do it like that." But go ahead.
Do my best, right? But there is a small presence on social media. So Instagram, I am Self Care Experience TL. My initials, Toni Louis. So Self Care Experience TL, and then Facebook is the Self Care Experience as well. So there should be a flow in that for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And y'all see, check all the links will be below. But give her a call, y'all. Like she done changed my whole life out here, y'all. Listen, this done changed my whole life for real, for real. Listen. So y'all better get one of these, whether it's with Toni or somebody else, definitely have somebody to help you process through these things, because I promise, I'm gonna say it again. I promise y'all. I listen. Listen, I don't know how this goes, but thank y'all so much for tuning in, and we will be back next week. Y'all have a happy holiday, Merry
Yeah.
Christmas, Happy Holidays, whatever you celebrate. Happy holidays, to all y'all, and we will see y'all next week. And I'm out.